Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford, but also to stand on the world's social media for law enforcement, politicians, and everybody to see. On the organized crime in Abbotsford and what the Abbotsford police, private police, were doing, and how Henry owned them. I want their wives to see, their kids to see, their fathers to see, but above all, other law enforcements. An attempted murder in broad daylight with eyewitnesses, cameras and everything, covered up for Henry Braun. He was that well tied in the federal and provincial government, and that well tied to own the Abbotsford private police, that would cause a scandal across Canada like none other. One of the largest criminal rings ever set up in Canada, I would believe. Henry's son is a proving officer. Counsel in Henry's house rigging the decision on Downs, how Mike DeYoung and Ed Fast were tied, developers, and how they were using the council with developers to win the decisions and developers that. Dave Sidhu is a sitting council. Today, you know, I told you Peter Sparanese called quits because of insider trading. He didn't call Dave Sidhu's property out. They've got to try to hold on to the private police. It's the dumping ground for the money. The question now is, with the 76 million missing out of Barrowtown, is David Eby taking it back in cash on these job sites? Because David Eby is an attorney. This is self-explanatory. Dave Sidhu is the sitting city council. On Tracy Road, his dad owned this 5 acres. In return for his dad to use the South Asian newspaper to load Ross Siemens and UFV to block me. Dave Sidhu kept his promise and his word with Andy Sidhu, as Henry was going to load Ross to get the money out of Kearney for the infrastructure and the floods. All into his pockets, the zoning and the private money. When Darren Brown told, it despoiled it all, and Trudeau kept the money off the table, and so does Kearney. Dave Sidhu kept his word. If you do not pay Dave Sidhu, like the RCMP said, Dave Sidhu will come forward. Dave Sidhu, the sitting council, lifted his dad's piece of land for over $6 million. 5 acres, lobbying it specially through Pam, who set it up through Henry, who was Henry's best friend on the NDP. Changing the zoning and rushing it through to increase the carbon footprint from 21,000 to 60,000. They were going to put septic field here, what has chemicals and high levels of chemicals and ammonias in it with all the wells around it. And it was a payoff for Dave Sidhu. The RCMP mission have helped so much, it's unbelievable. The threats on my life and why the Abbotsford men were after me. The Abbotsford police ain't police officers. They're Henry's personally posse. They're Henry's loyal friends, like Olenoff said, drop that video of Henry having counsel in his house on Downs, or I will personally fucking bury you. Because he knew council were collaborating over the jobs. These were buddies and buddies, and that Abbotsford police, men and women, kept it up. They kept fooling the community till it was too late. Henry knew to tell the man in the Abbotsford police, and Mr. Pelican, with all his experience from Peter Wall, Aquilini, Mike Dakota, gets in front of them development signs, knows my son's approving officer, knows the city plan for 5 years, and he's running all the job sites. He knows the city people are all my friends passing the decisions. And this is what they were doing. Today, the city told me, the spies with inside, the order came from the ALC to keep going on Dave Sidhu's property no matter what. Keep that bloody job going. That means not from Vitalis. The ALC is pushing down and not stopping it and halting it. That means David Eby wants his money, just like Barrowtown, and it went missing. In my opinion, David Eby's dumping this money in, knowing how dirty Henry is, and took the money out. 76 million's missing out of Barrowtown. Dave Sidhu's the city council. He lifts his dad's property to changing a Rob Funk of diverse down on 200 to 400. The Mackenzie Bog and everything else just keeps going up that ladder, and it's getting more and more in Eby's office. I bet you're going to see Eby say, there's going to become an interim leader for the NDP. I'm stepping out. And that means he's filled his suitcase and he's going to make a run for it. There is no way that the Premier should be even allowing this, period, knowing that the councillor was Dave Sidhu, and Dave Sidhu and Ross were best friends. So you saw that video that Ted Dyckman is being...
After another big flood in 2025...
Ted Dyckman's being hampered. for $7,000 on bringing gravel in. And they said the ALC didn't prove it, the city didn't prove it, it's due to floods. Case there's, you know, he didn't get the proper engineering and all this. So let me tell you, where was Manny Farms when they dumped all that land full to make a gravel pit? There was no engineering. Where was the engineering on the Mackenzie Bog on the city's friends? There was no engineering. Where was the geoseismic and studies here? There was none. Where was the engineering when they knocked our houses up on behind Lou's Bar and Grill off the mountain? Where was the consultant of the engineering? These engineers are missing. Where was the engineering when they hauled the city taxpayers' dollars of all the rocks on Gladys Avenue to help Ron Funk? Where was the engineering when Ron Funk decided to knock down Diverse and tug it into Chilliwack and dump it all in farmland? Where was the engineering when Ross knocked this gas station, the hub, down and tugged it in to Mission? This is the work of the RCMP. Not only could we prove it, the RCMP said we want to video film it because the guys at the top was taking from the provincial taxpayers and the municipal taxpayers, and they were enriching themselves. Henry not only had his son as a proving officer, he had his brother on the police board, and he loaded the council. So this is why the cheating with Amric Moran is such a massive level with Corky Neufeld, Simon Gibson, and Mark Warkentine, and the chief. I want to do a video and I want to talk about the chief, but I don't want to do it here. And this is the cheating because they know they need to load another council to run over the decision. And Amric Moran should not have them election signs available. So this is Dave Sidhu's property. As your mayor, to Ted Dykeman and to all the farmers, as your mayor, David Eby's consent or not David Eby's consent, I'll walk it into the Supreme Court and we'll go after David Eby for insider trading, stealing from the BC taxpayers, rigging a decision knowing it's the city council, and what he's did here to endanger. And I told by all the neighbors, they have phoned Tracy's their name. What a coincidence. I'm on Tracy Road and their name's Tracy. Of all the dust coming through their houses, the helicopter flying, weak in their shingles and nothing. They see me now. Now they know they gotta help. Ross Siemens got loaded and he covered an attempted murder. Henry used his friends. They were his friends. They were no police department. And the problem is we have in Abbotsford, the man that died in the police, were they cleaning and doing cleaning for Henry, and they were in drugs and everything. When you go this far to cover an attempted murder, when you use the task force on Councillor Mogel, when you rig the decision like this with Dave Sidhu to shut his mouth because he helped Ross Siemens, the rest is self-explanatory, ain't it? Ain't it? And this is why the Abbotsford police were on me. The RCMP made it clear, Mr. Pelican, you need to call it out. We're worried about your safety of them tossing you out of your truck. You know what they're after you for? I said, yeah. He said, did you sleep with their wives? Oh, no, none of them wives. They might have STD. That cop picked up that prostitute and had sex in it down at Paviati's restaurant in the front of the cop car. And we don't know which one it was. So we don't want to date their wives. Why are they after you? Because of the development signs. Darren Braun, the illegal sites, the owner gets it pulled. You imagine this gets pulled. You imagine David Eby says, I've had enough, it's going to get me caught. And under the RCMP investigation, he pulls that. Wow. Will Vitalis light Ross Siemens up? Wow. Will Vitalis Vanderpools go down on Dave and Andy Sidhu? Wow. Will Vitalis go on Mike DeYoung and Ed Fast? Wow. Will Amric Moran get spanked? Could you imagine the police chief and his top investigators trying to find a place to hide when you start jamming them developers? So this is why they're told to keep it going. They cannot have this developer pissed off with them. Illegal is illegal. If it's a fentanyl, if it's organized crime, or it's a job site, or it's insider trading. And insider trading takes advantage of the taxpayers. And you went down to beat Ted Dykeman up. The city of Abbotsford and Magna looked away, and Tracy looked away from all this. And they went to get Ted Dykeman for $7,000 because it's about control. We've got to control the little guys. The little guys are the way we get our taxes, and we can get our money to bring pipelines and everything illegally out of the city expenditure for us, like Henry Brown was doing. How's that possible? I want to make sure Ted Dykeman understands this, and every farmer understands it. Henry's own son, Darren Brown, took me by the hands and opened the doors to everything that was going on between the Abbotsford police, Mike DeYoung, and Ed Fast. Henry's own son did, and I went to the RCMP, and I stand on the world stage for my town. And not only that, Ted and farmers, Henry got in his car because I wouldn't cut a deal and wouldn't be silenced. And he tried to kill me and run me over and fled from the scene, put me in the hospital. And Abbotsford leading investigators, they got to stay. They know where the drugs are. Oh, they got to stay. They got mortgages and wives. Covered it for Henry Brown. Then on top of it, farmers and Ted, they decided, well, I was all beaten up and barely walked, to chase me. Chase the victim and try to get the victim out of town, because the Abbotsford police have shields. They're above everybody, and we got to kiss their ass. Not under my mayorship, not under my leadership, not under my watch, not here under in my town. Them buggers are going to get ripped, annihilated, and their wives are going to be separate, asking for divorces when they see them filthy men that did this. I'm live. Abbotsford, British Columbia. Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu's on Tracy Road, and I want to just say this before I close. I encourage the Abbotsford police, wives, fathers, kids, sons and daughters, that you think you know them pieces of garbage that are on that police force. Drive down to these videos that I make live for you to see and have a look at this, and then do the research, and you'll find Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu live, Abbotsford, British Columbia, Tracy Road.